think the best way to do this is to introduce you to yourself, because I don't know most of the people here, and you can vicariously get to know something about Samuel. So, fellow, I see you. The translation is, Samuel, you rock. I teach design in the Department of Art and Art History, and Samuel comes from another world. You come from biology, and one of the reasons I picked you to come into the class, it's very competitive to get into the class, is because you're a biologist. And I have a hunch that biologists make great designers. And you prove that to be right. I think I opened a door to another world, a world maybe of non-Cartesian thinking. And there are no maps for this world. You have to design the maps yourself, and the world is constantly changing, and you did it again and again and again. And you did it with so much courage. And courage is having heart and mind and soul. And it was such an example, and you continue to be an example. I saw you at the product realization labs working on your lamp, and so out of your element, but then so in your element very soon after that. So, like your name, I think you're a blessing. You're a blessing to me and to this community, and when you go forward to the rest of the world. And so, I'm very, very proud.
Thank you, Jonathan, for the introduction. Jonathan, thank you for choosing me in that class as well, as a biologist. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why designers can make great biologists. We're here tonight to celebrate intellectual achievement. But what is it that makes us intellectual? Western tradition draws a sharp boundary between the intellect up here and the body down there, dating all the way back to the days of Plato. 2,000 years later, Descartes entrenched the distinction between thought and matter, between the abstract and the concrete, the theoretical and the applied. And to this day, this tradition permeates our academic institutions, yet I find that boundary between our thoughts and our bodies to be flawed. Think of our classic stories of scientific discovery. We've got Newton. Picture him napping under a tree. An apple falls, hits him on the head, wakes him up, and out pops the theory of gravitation. So first key lesson here. Newton wasn't pulling all-nighters on problem set. He was taking naps. Then picture Archimedes, relaxing in his bathtub, letting his mind drift upon the concept of a buoyant force. The bottom line is, I'm here to tell you to remember to take more naps for the sake of science. And please don't forget to take baths for the sake of those sitting next to you. More seriously, both stories share a crucial message. They both illustrate how sensory perception is a source of intellectual inspiration. Now, this is extremely good news, because whether you're a writer or a scientist, inspiration isn't a gift reserved for a few geniuses. It comes from our ability to be receptive to external stimuli and to connect our sensory observations to our fields of study. How do you learn to do this? I took a course called Design 1 with Dr. Edelman, or Art Studio 60, which is required for product design majors. This program in product design combines mechanical engineering, art, and psychology, and alone perfectly encapsulates the Phi Beta Kappa values of education across fields such as science and engineering, humanities, and social sciences. Stanford does it all in one. The simple premise of Design 1 is to enrich our sensory perception. So let me read a couple of assignment prompts. Take 50 pictures of different surface textures and briefly describe how each one feels at your fingertips for next week. mix 6 original colors to generate 100 new colors, then paint 300 little blocks in sets of 3 with all 100 colors, and arrange them according to properties such as a scale of light to dark or degrees of saturation. This stuff was traumatizing. And by that I mean it was life-changing. After a while, and to this day, I can hardly look at the sky without thinking of all the shades of blue. I can't pick up a fork to eat without thinking of how its weight is distributed and how that feels in my hand. And for a biologist like me, this class was a completely new way of experiencing the world. Here's another example. When I was informed that the 3-week sophomore college course on Darwin and evolution with Professor Durham here, which took place in the Galapagos, involved a fair bit of photography, I thought, great, not only do I get to witness some of the most fascinating examples of evolution, I also get to improve my photography skills. That's not what happened. Photography was not an on-the-side activity. It became a tool to sharpen our observation. And developing the sensitivity of a photographer's eye was like integrating a miniature camera inside my mind. Today, even when I'm not carrying my camera around, I can see things more sharply, and I pick out contrasting elements. And in the Galapagos, this was by far the most efficient way to notice the incredible biodiversity around us. Back on campus a couple weeks ago, I was eating lunch with a friend outside on the engineering quad. We were sitting in front of a tall oak. I really should have been paying attention to what my friend was saying to me, but because of that internalized camera, and because of my near obsession at this point with contrasts and colors and shapes, I couldn't help but look at the tree, and then look at its shadow. And I had one of those moments where my senses and my thoughts came crashing together. Okay, bear with me here. The shadow looked just like a blown-up picture of a neuron with its dendritic spines. And then I thought, isn't it amazing that trees have branches on one end, and then roots at the other, connected by a trunk, and a neuron starts with dendritic spines, also called a dendritic tree, and then there's an axon, and there's axon terminals. And maybe there's the genes that code for the bifurcations in the branches of the tree are doing something very similar biologically to the genes that allow the neurons, the neuronal dendrites to branch out. And maybe these could be the fractal genes that Professor Spolsky talked about the other day. And then, at this point, I think my friend was done with her sandwich. It's at times like these that I feel like an intellectual. Not just because I'm thinking about neurons over lunch, but because looking at shadows has the ability to generate new thoughts about biological systems. For most of us, graduation means we won't have a green library next year, and we won't have complete computer clusters, and we won't have problem sets and final projects. But it does not mean the end of our intellectual lives. On the contrary, graduation marks the time where we can take the tools we've sharpened in college, go out and sense our way through the world, making connections across all the fields that Matt mentioned and that we've excelled in, and finally become true intellectuals. Thank you.